Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 1. It's called Time's Arrow Part 2. It's a new season. This is exciting. I mean, since we started doing Trek, this is what, the 9th season overall?
Yeah, we've done 8 complete seasons.
Yeah. So this is the 9th overall of the Star Trek world.
There's always a weird element, though, where this episode still kind of just feels like the end of last season because it's part 2, right? And it doesn't really feel till it starts till next episode.
I mean, all the seasons have been like that since season 4. Yeah. The first time they did it was 3 and 4, so yeah. So this is the third time in a row it's felt like this. But yeah, so we had the story where Data was in the past. The rest of the crew just went through the portal at the end of the finale, and we had these aliens stealing and killing people and sort of basically making it look like just diseases of the time period and getting away with it that way.
Mostly cholera, I think.
Yeah, I was going to mention this episode. So now I was excited to see what they did with this and how they wrapped it up. But for the most part, I was pretty satisfied. I thought it was a good, fun follow-up.
Yeah, I think the villainous aliens remained the most underwhelming element.
Yeah, they never came close to that one scene of Data describing them when we couldn't see them, which was by far their standout moment.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, they were fine. They weren't like bad. They were just there. They were the threat.
Yeah, I think all the fun stuff here though with the time travel shenanigans and Mark Twain sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong, and just all those elements were pretty enjoyable to experience. I did actually really like the ultimate solution to Data's head, which is that they're just going to stick Data's head that stays there for all those centuries on his body, which they actually bring with them after his head gets popped off. So genius. And Picard left a message in Morse code in the back of his head. That was some vital information that he learned. So it's I like that part. All of a sudden it was like, this is not about the death of Data. This is just his head gets reattached a bit later.
A couple of thoughts on that. Yeah. One, I liked the way that the message was sent, because obviously I think we speculated last time, well, they know where everything's found, so that's where the message would be, but obviously they didn't find it at the time. So it was like, well, what is it? And this was a clever way of doing that.
It was only it was something that only could be noticed once Data was actually turned on again, because he just reads what the message was.
Yes. So it's pretty clever. The other thing I hope is addressed at some point after this is it re-questions Data's mortality again. Because that was a big thing last episode, was he was relieved that, no, he can die, that there is an end to him. And now it seems like, well, 500 years, yeah, sure, the head might have been dead, but we can just stick it back on and he's fine. So maybe he has to, reconsider things.
I don't think it'll come up immediately, but I feel like the subject of him and mortality will come up again. And I think the idea that he was relieved here is something that we can remember. So when it comes up again and the questions of him feeling different, this is going to be there now as part of the ongoing
Don't be wrong,
tapestry.
I am obviously familiar with enough future Trek events to know that it will be relevant at some point. But I hope it's referenced in a more direct way because of this, or I hope this has some sort of impact on him going forward.
We'll see. The one thing I was really glad about is, obviously Picard is left behind when the rest of them jump through the portal, and he's stuck there with younger Guinan, and Riker's pissed at future Guinan for not just telling him and it's not like even she would really know much from her perspective. All she really knows is that eventually Mark Twain showed up again. But what I did like is that Picard, just before he leaves, he actually tells Mark Twain to go settle the bill, because I did think it was a bit of a dick move that they were conning this woman who was giving them a room to stay in, because he kept stalling and saying, we'll have the rent for you tomorrow. And I'm like, that's poor woman, you're going to leave her high and dry. She's been renting you a room out for like a week or whatever it's been, the implication that they've been here for a little while. Because when we started the episode, they've all got outfits, because they didn't come back with pre-made outfits, they came back in their uniforms, so they've all infiltrated. Then they're checking bodies, Riker's impersonating a policeman, and all these things are going on. So yeah, they've not found Data yet at the start of the episode.
Pretty well-oiled machine though, aren't they?
Yeah. It's later on when they interact with the aliens that Data reads that with his device, which is basically looking for like time shifts and anomalies, and that's how he ends up running into them. As he comes in raiding to save them. I did notice the obvious double who was like, actually driving the carriage at the end of the scene when it went to the wide shot. Because presumably Brent Spiner can't actually drive the horse carriage. I don't even know if driving's the right word, but
even if he can, he probably wasn't allowed, right? There's
possibly,
a lot of insurance safety regulations in American TV more so than elsewhere. That means that they just can't do stuff, even if they are capable of doing things usually.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I think if he was actually experienced in this particular thing, they might let him do it. But then, how likely is it that someone in the modern day is trained to? I mean, it's one thing knowing how to ride a horse, which happens a lot in westerns and things like that, where they do have to ride the horses. But
I'm thinking of like even relatively simple things. I know we've seen examples on this show, but I know an actor, so John Barrowman, when he was fencing on Arrow, wasn't, even though he knows how to do it, and he's done a lot of his stunts on stuff in like Doctor Who and Torchwood in the UK where it was filmed. Over there, they were like, no, you're just not allowed. Too much insurance, the cost's not worth it. And I'm assuming, when we've had fencing scenes here, it's kind of been a similar thing. It's why they're usually masked, I think, because it's easier to hide, right?
Obviously. But that's how they fight each other. So there's some fun stuff sort of sprinkled throughout there. I thought Picard just pretended to be Patrick Stewart to the landlady by saying he's part of an acting troupe and talking about plays and shit.
Doing Shakespeare.
I was like, oh, you're Patrick Stewart then. That's your cover, is your Patrick Stewart, right?
Hey, the best lies are the ones with some truth in them.
And of course, I was thinking about Geordi and his visor, and I'm like, oh, every time someone comes in, he has to like quickly take it off and put on some sunglasses so no one suspects anything.
There's a scene where they're all reading from the script.
Yeah.
And I think it's Crucius just turn the book the right way around.
Troy. It's Troy. Yeah, Troy's, and she's just got this. She's smiling at the landlady the whole time as she just sort of casually turns it upside, or right way up, I should say. There's a lot of fun little bits in there with them dealing with the time period, and it doesn't like linger on it too much because obviously we got a lot in the first episode. The first part is it knows not to necessarily dangle on them too long. There's some of Mark Twain, of course, talking to a reporter and then, snooping around Data's room. I did get a laugh. It wasn't as funny as the first part, but I did get a laugh when Data says, this part that's missing that Mark Twain's taken from the device. It's probably him that's taken it. I hope we should warn him, though, because that part, the way it's been modified, if it's, prolonged contact to human skin will be toxic. And you just hear it drop in the closet as he hears that.
Yeah.
That was a funny moment. It was a funny beat. The bellboy, I actually looked up his name because it was very clear from the dialogue that he's supposed to be someone.
Were you not familiar with him?
No.
Oh, okay. Jack London, right?
Yeah, Jack London. I got the impression from the scene that, okay, he's probably a writer as well, but when he specifically said, I've got a feeling that I want to go to Alaska for some reason, I'm like, okay, that is a reference to something. So I looked him up, and Call of the Wilds.
It's big one, yeah.
One thing, yeah. So yeah, I don't even remember catching his name last time, to be honest.
I don't think they said it last time. I think that was because because I'm assuming Jack London's a pseudonym, right? In the same way that Mark Twain is. So it probably used his regular name, if it used anything, and we just didn't recognize that.
Well, what's interesting about that idea, though, is that this episode actually directly gets into like people calling him Mark Twain and referencing him as Mark Twain and him correcting him, and that he doesn't want to be known as that now publicly. And I wonder if there's kind of a, look at the bellboy's there to represent like a younger version of him in a way where it's like, oh, there was a time when he really was trying to get his like pen name over, like, no, this is my persona, this is who I am. But in his older age, he's like, no, I want people to know me now. Like, I want to actually sort of like,
but too late.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it's really saying much there, but it was like a theme I picked up on between those two characters.
There's definitely a parallel between them.
Yeah. But obviously he gives them some advice, and because
off he goes to become a famous writer.
Go on an adventure and write about it. I actually do. It's funny because I was expecting when they run into Mark Twain the first time, all the characters, when Picard realizes who it is, there was a moment where I was like, oh, he knows who this is, and I think he's clearly a fan. and I was hoping they would go into it more. So there was a lot packed into that moment where Mark Twain comes in, because they can only send one person back, and whoever they send back can't come back forward. Only Picard can come back forward. And Mark Twain's like, well, I'll go back then. I should be there anyway. I got to see the spaceship. I'm excited. I'm happy about it. But he goes back.
The future's not shit.
Yeah, he's actually he's less jaded because he sees that the future's actually much better, and even admits that it's maybe worth giving up the cigars for all the equality and all the shitty, like
the lack of poverty,
the rich preying on the poor and all that shit. All that's gone. Maybe that's actually worth a few changes. But he comes back. There's a lot packed into that scene where he just gives Picard the instructions and stuff. Where Picard, on top of settling the bill at the hotel or the inn, he says, I wish I could get to know you more. And I like that line, because it's in one line you get that. No, he totally got that this was Mark Twain, and he was kind of starstruck because he's a well-read man. He appreciates classic literature. That's been implied.
We've seen him reading many times.
So, it's those little moments where I think if they hadn't had that moment where he said that, and I felt like, okay, I got the knowing look when he saw him, but I kind of wish they gave us more. And as much as it's only one line, it was actually enough for him to just say, I wish I could got to speak to you a bit more.
I actually like it more than maybe if we'd had like more of it earlier, because it was the situation was so urgent that there wasn't time to stop and have that. And if we had that moment, it might have felt like we were just, because of course it's there, right? Because of course Picard's gonna, but because he's a professional, he just keeps moving until, okay, I got time for like just one little thing at the end.
Yeah, but I like that they got that little beat in there just to give us that character flavor. And there's obviously a lot of the Mark Twain stuff where he jumps in the portal with everyone else and sees the starship, sees Worf and freaks out. And I didn't even think about the fact that Worf didn't come, and it makes sense he didn't, because they couldn't disguise Worf in any way, shape, or form. Like, how are they going to make him blend
difficult,
in? Yeah. So yeah, when he walks into the teleporter room and Mark Twain freaks out, I'm like, oh yeah, die. Yeah. He's a blue alien walking around. He's having
and he assumes they're all. I mean, he lives in a post-colonial world. Very he's there thinking this is some form of empire, essentially.
Yeah, even when Troy says this is an exploration ship and stuff, he's like, that's what the Spanish said. He's doubting every step of the way. If anything, if you could have had more time, rather than her just saying we've eliminated poverty and him believing her, like him seeing like an example would have been nice to like really inspire him. But I mean, you only have so much time in the episode. That's
the sort of thing where you have to do an entire episode dedicated to, hey, we've got Mark Twain in the future.
Yeah, right? Just something as simple as like he's stuck with them for a mission, and he actually sees the impact they have on like some small like colony or something, and give him a clear example of it.
Yeah.
But like all those ideas were good fun, and the Guinan stuff's interesting. I talked about how in Picard or Guinan doesn't seem to recognize Picard. I'm going to give it a bit of a pass, and at least it's been like 100 years, and he's aged a lot in that time. Admittedly, it is quite a big moment where he stays with her when she's injured and like says we're going to be more than friends someday. So I feel like she would remember it. But
I'm going to say I don't buy it, because the implication. Take Picard the charge out of the equation for a moment.
Yes.
The implication I got from this moment in here was her being like, this is her motivation to seek him out. To get to know him in the future, to serve on the Enterprise. She remembers him for centuries.
And Picard, like when he eventually admits his name, because he's kind of avoiding saying his name for the way it affect the past reasons. Although it's kind of weird that he thinks that with Guinan, given that he's already interacted with her in the past. But that's generally the rule. When he eventually says who he is, she does like sort of like recognize the name. Like the name, like it sparks a moment with her far more than seeing him does. And I guess they're just trying to play with the idea that she did forget, and then her interactions in 2024 are going to rekindle it, and then she'll remember from then on, which is a bit of a stretch and convoluted.
In a way, that makes me like, without having seen it, it makes me like that stuff in Picard less.
Sure.
Because the implication from that then is this meeting here, yeah, sure, it was important, but she forgot about it. Don't worry about it. It's this time that she remembers. This is why she seeks him out.
This is the problem with doing more sequels, prequels, and all these things when, because you're stuffing more things in between stuff that was supposed to just be a nice A to B. All of a sudden, there's all these things in between that you're claiming happened that
which
murky it up.
is actually fine because you could do it really easily by just having her know who she, know who Picard is and just go with it, and you don't have this problem at all. Then
that's the real thing. Yeah, why didn't they just write her in Picard to recognize him as we'd expect her to and play it from there? And she is more cynical and bitter in Picard because of the state of the world, and like I guess living in the US from this time period into the present day has made her a really bitter person. And I understand the motivation to have that, that to have an effect on her, and that has maybe an interesting thing to see.
If anything, surely the beat to play from there is Picard convincing her, no, it gets better. It's worthwhile. I don't know if that's what the show does, but
part of that, I mean, she's only been in one episode so far, but part of that was there where she talks about how Earth's at a turning point where the next couple of decades are going to be rough, but like once we get to first contact and the 2080s or whatever it is, that's when things really start to turn around. Like that he does sort of say something to that effect. But I mean, I did critique, like I thought their interactions in that episode when I reviewed it with Tara were probably the worst thing about the episode, because I didn't feel like it had like an arc or didn't like really accomplish anything or convincing. It was just like once they said his name, that was, oh, okay, I'll help you, I guess, now, because that means something. But
just a weird choice to go in that direction with it, I think, fundamentally. Like,
admittedly, that was the first episode of the season. It's been a few weeks. I am curious if I ever go back and watch that episode now, having seen this, like, and if I read the nuances, maybe I'll spot some other things that I didn't see at the time. But certainly from my memory, it doesn't quite feel like it fits properly.
Obviously, Tara had seen this and had that context. Did she defend it any more?
She tried. I think she was trying to dance around
spoilers for your sake.
Dance around spoilers, but I don't know if necessarily she was trying to defend these problems that we're now bringing up. Like, I don't know if anything she would have said would have addressed that, but I mean,
discussion for another time.
Yes. So anyway, back to this episode specifically at hand. But just watching this concurrently with watching the new Picard, there's definitely some interesting. The fact that Inner Light was just a couple ago, and then some of this stuff, which is relevant because we're doing Guinan in 2024, is just, it's kind of wild how much of it's syncing up with where we are. But there's some other fun stuff. Riker pretending to be the policeman, and the actual policeman just immediately calling his bullshit.
Well, where are you stationed? I've been downtown for 3 years. I don't know you. Come down to the station.
Yeah, this isn't like modern San Francisco with millions of people. It seems a bit more,
It's borderline frontier town still.
Yeah. Oh, there was a bit of a wink actually with when Picard said he was adjusting the lights so it's safer in an earthquake. Yeah. He's like, there's not been an earthquake here in 30 years. Well, another 10, 15. Just you wait.
Yeah. Don't want to tell you, mate, but they be coming.
Yeah. I think the sad part is that he wasn't really fixing. He was just putting like a sort of like a scanner device on the light because they were expecting the aliens to show up there.
Yeah, he wasn't actually helping.
Yeah, which is a shame. Which is good in a way, because I did think about, like, if he was actually making it safer, he's affecting the future, because he might have saved the life that was supposed to die in the earthquake.
I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, which is why he didn't do anything. But the thought did occur to me.
Yeah, as much as it sucks, that's time travel 101, right?
Yeah, it's kind of there's like a weird wiggle room with like discussing some of this stuff, in the sense that Riker goes back to the ship in the future and says to Guinan, hey, tell me what you know so I can make an informed decision. And she says, I can't tell you, otherwise that'll affect the decision you're going to make. But I'm like, and he says, yeah, but what if not telling me affects it? And he's got kind of a point. Like, how do you know you weren't always supposed to tell him? Once he comes back to the present day and he knows, like, you were involved in the past, at that point...
If she just says, hey, Twain goes back, he solves the problem.
Yeah, they could have done that, like, quicker. If anything... She almost got Picard stranded in the past if it wasn't for the fact that Picard himself put a message into Data's head that Geordi got just in time.
To be fair, did she know? Did Guinan know that using the laser, like the regular weapons, would make it that bad? Because she was kind of not in a great state physically, right? She was injured.
True, yeah, she was kind of in and out of it. She was.
Picard went and had that conversation with the dying alien, not right next to her. She might have never heard that, so she might not have known to tell them, "Hey, don't do this."
True. Okay, she wouldn't have known that part. Yeah.
I think I'd like to think if it was at that serious a level, she would have stepped in, or if she'd known it was that serious.
Yeah, because basically what I'm saying is at what point does she have to consider the fact that she is supposed to tell him something, and that's why everything works out, and it was always going to work out.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's just like one of these weird time travel.
I think that debate only really comes up if she knows the impact of what's about to happen, whereas I don't think she did. I think she knows that, hey, yeah, Picard gets back to the present day, Twain comes and hands over the staff. But I think that's probably about all she knew. If she'd known about the weapons, making everything significantly worse, I think she. No,
I can buy shit here and that, and I also buy that she didn't necessarily know what Picard was doing with Data's head. She wouldn't have seen really what he was doing.
Yeah.
So that's all fair. It's just one of those interesting things with time travel that comes up, where, particularly in just talking about like doing stuff and not doing stuff to affect the past. And what we always end up talking about how certain people were always going to go back in time and they were always going to affect it in this way. So you have this kind of the time loop element of it. And certainly here, the fact that Data's head was there implies, they were always going to go back there and do this. This was always going to be how this plays. And even Guinan's interaction with them.
I mean,
says that.
Even from the premise of last episode, that was Data's whole argument is that there is no changing this. The head's there. We found it. This will happen at some point. So while yes, it's an argument that can be had and should be had, we're going to have more time travel, and I'm sure next gen cast I'll get to it at some point, and we'll have that debate.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that comes up when you start talking, particularly when you're talking about characters doing or not doing things because they think it'll affect time travel.
Yeah,
it gets a bit murky because you always could turn around and say, well, how do you know you aren't always going to come back and do this? And it's something that I think, having seen a lot of time travel TV show and movies, it's almost frustrating how very few of them have characters to suggest, but what if we always were meant to come back and do this?
Yeah. I don't think this has been a lot more open with it than some other things. And like even to the fact that Picard wouldn't have gone unless Guinan was like, hey, Picard, you should probably go on this mission.
That's so true.
She does directly impact it.
Yeah,
already.
She does affect it. That's a good point. If she hadn't said that to him, then he wouldn't have went back.
No.
Because he wasn't going to. Like, he was actively just telling Riker
he was just going to follow protocol and do the usual.
So she did have an effect, but she only said that because she knows she saw him in the past. So it's...
and she knows that he wouldn't go unless she said that, so she had to ensure that it happens. Which makes her hesitancy here at the end a little stranger, I would say.
I guess the difference is that in this case, she knew he went back, so that was something that was going to happen, so she didn't feel like she was ruining it or like changing stuff by making him go. And her knowledge of who he is in the present, just by knowing him, that he wouldn't be going by default, is because she knows him. But because she knows he's going to go back, her making sure he goes back is just her ensuring that what's supposed to happen will happen.
And now she's just trusting in the rest of the crew that they'll come to the same conclusion and make the decision without her interfering.
Yes, because she didn't know... I mean, again, she knows Mark Twain goes back, but she doesn't know how they came to that choice, she doesn't know why they came to that choice, or anything like that. Yeah. So, yeah. That was a good time travel debate, worth having. So, yeah, there was a lot of moments here. I like that they've still got the same set that Hugh from Iborg was in. That's where Data's like body's like being held up when Geordi's working on him.
Hey, got to recycle these things, right?
I do love that Riker says O'Brien beam Picard aboard. We never see O'Brien though, and
I think that was actually a weird, jarring omission. And if you're not gonna, because you don't even have O'Brien answer to say that he's got him or anything. It's like, that was weird.
Yeah, the choice to have him say that if they can't show him, I agree, is a little bit strange. However, my suspicion as to why we don't just cut to him is because they're probably filming Deep Space Nine now alongside this.
I agree, but why doesn't he just say transporter beam him up like they do all the time?
Oh, sure. I love the idea though. So what I think it is, I think it's because they know he's going to be on Deep Space Nine and they're reminding the audience, hey, remember O'Brien? You like him, don't you? Keep him in your head.
It could be.
I think that's maybe the reason for it. But I do love the idea though. If he does have to guest on TNG before Deep Space Nine, because I assume once Deep Space Nine's on, he's off to Deep Space Nine. They don't have to explain why he's not there because he's literally in kayfabe. He's gone.
Yeah.
But like until then, I love the idea that he's probably wearing the same outfit, so they could just run across to the other set. Like, I'll just do my one line.
Yeah.
Because he'll be wearing the same outfit. Presumably, I don't know. Maybe he's been promoted, so he'll have an extra little circle on his collar.
Maybe their station have their own uniforms.
I mean, I've only seen like random bits and photos from Deep Space Nine. I don't remember them looking any different, but maybe they are, and I've just
maybe they are subtle differences.
Yeah, maybe there's a subtle difference. But from my casual glance, I remember Voyager and Deep Space Nine looking pretty much the same.
I'm in agreement that yes, they look pretty much the same, but also we will, I'm sure, inspect the outfits when we get there.
Oh, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will have a whole 10-minute section on the nuanced difference of...
Oh, look, the amount of time we've spent on Picard's jacket at this point, I think we have earned that right.
Which he was wearing at the end of this one when he went to see Guinan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He always looks bad in the jacket.
It does.
Same with the start of Inner Light. He knew it was going to be a big episode, so he starts off wearing that jacket.
Yeah. It's a signifier.
Lets you know. This is how it is. But yeah, I had a fun time with this one. That is Time's Arrow Part 2 to start off Season 6. I did have a scan of the average ratings in IMDb. I was just curious. I was curious to see if there's any extreme highs or extreme lows to see how things go. There is one episode rated lower than anything from last season.
Oh boy. What's the general consensus? Are we looking mostly pretty good?
There's a lot in the mid to high sevens, which is kind of your standard, and then there's a nice handful in the eights. There's a couple in the sixes. Typical. So if anything, our theory that it keeps getting more consistent, but with less peaks and valleys, seems to, looking at the IMDb ratings, would seem to indicate that is again going to hold. So
what you're saying is we're going to have a real interesting top 5 at the end of this season.
Very possibly. Although I hear. I have good intel that season 7 will buck that trend, and we'll have some extreme highs, but some extreme lows. I have
look. While that is objectively less entertaining, it's going to be way more fun to talk about.
That is very true. I'll just say this: when I sent Tara a message earlier saying I'm about to start season 6 of TNG, her response, and I quote to the letter, "Enjoy the last good season."
Yep. Okay. I have heard, not such great things about season 7 in the past.
I've heard great things about the final episode, but the final season as a whole. I
didn't realize it was going to be quite that bad, perhaps.
Yeah. But yes, so good. Well, let's look ahead to next time then. What is episode 2 of season 6 looking like? Coming out next time, we have Realm of Fear. It's a good title.
It is, yeah. I like it.
Here's the description. Overcoming his fear of transports, Lieutenant Barclay he's back. This is his 3rd episode, baby. He joins an away team only to find something in the beam with him. In the transport beam?
So he's very justified in being terrified of these things then, apparently, because shit be real in there. I
love the idea, like Shatner's famous, I mean, obviously for Trek, but before that, he was on the Twilight Zone episode where there's something on the wing. I love the idea that this is a Star Trek equivalent. There's something in the teleporter beam with me.
Yeah.
So, that's just funny to me. It sounds like a fun time. Broccoli's back in full effect. Everyone loves a bit of broccoli. Well,
in a while.
Yeah. I'll let the irony of that statement sink in. So
what irony? It's just sheer pure fact.
You love broccoli? Do you like broccoli? Are you a big broccoli person?
Do you not?
I haven't fallen in love with it, I have to say.
Oh, you're missing out.
My health is missing out. I think it's fair to say.
I would say if you're not in love with it, you're cooking it wrong.
Okay. I'm not much of a cook. Let's be honest here.
It's really easy to ruin, but if you do it good, it's really good.
Okay. You would tell me Brussels sprouts are good next.
Oh, no, I'm not going to go that far.
Some common sense prevails.
Keep them away from me.
So Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Let us know what you think of this episode of Trek in the comments, like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, and of course you can support everything we do over at patreon.com/MailPlusTV for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. And do check out reviews of Modern Trek that I do with Tara, as well as reviews of Babylon 5 and classic Twilight Zone, may be of interest to you. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, Wesley Crusher is repeating 11th grade, whatever he was on when he got into trouble for doing this.
Unfortunately, he's still in this damn year.
He's still in this. He still exists. Yes, he's not been wiped from existence. It's a good job Mark Twain didn't run into him. Otherwise, his jaded attitude about the future would have come just rushing back with the blunt force of a 18-wheeler truck hitting him in the face.